Hey everyone, and welcome back to Western Flavors. Before we get into our new episode, let's recap the dramatic events from our last story. After Ty and Caleb were captured, a triumphant Nathan manipulated a trusting Amy into agreeing to a quick wedding, using his father's health as a cruel excuse. Meanwhile, in a secret prison, Ty suffered a traumatic breakdown, only to be pulled back by Caleb, who revealed he had sent a desperate SOS message to Ashley. The chapter ended with the two men clinging to that one fragile thread of hope in the darkness. If you missed that incredible story, the full playlist is linked for you in the description below. If you're enjoying this new season, please take a second to hit that like button, and be sure to subscribe so you never miss a chapter. Now today, that thread of hope arrives, as a determined Ashley begins a rescue mission that is even stranger than she could possibly imagine. The moment Ashley's crowbar shattered the heavy lock, the steel door of the cell groaned open, revealing the two shocked, weakened men inside. The beam of her flashlight cut through the darkness, and for a heart-stopping second, the three of them were frozen in a tableau of disbelief.
Ashley!
He screamed her name, a single joyous and triumphant cry of a man who had been to the very edge of despair and had just been pulled back by a miracle. He stumbled out of the cell and into her arms, a desperate emotional collision in the middle of the dusty, moonlit warehouse. For Ashley, the relief of seeing him alive, of feeling him solid and real in her arms, was so powerful it almost buckled her knees. But her relief was immediately tempered by 1,000 frantic questions. Her gaze flickered past him into the cell at the other man who was now slowly, painfully getting to his feet. He was a stranger. A wild, bearded figure who looked more like a mountain hermit than a man. He was covered in dirt, his clothes were torn, and his eyes held a haunted, dangerous look that made a shiver of pure, primal fear run down her spine. She pulled back from Caleb, her own voice a sharp, urgent whisper, her focus entirely on him.
Caleb, are you okay? What the hell is going on? Who is this guy?
She gestured with her head towards Ty, her expression a mixture of profound confusion and deep-seated suspicion. Caleb looked from Ashley's beautiful, determined face to Ty's and back again. His mind, still foggy from exhaustion and dehydration, struggled to form a coherent explanation. How could he possibly, in the middle of a dangerous escape, explain the impossible, unbelievable truth? How could he say, "This is Ty Borden, the man we all thought was dead for 4 years, and he's been held captive by the man your best friend is about to marry"? It was insane. It was impossible. He chose the only path his panicked mind could find: evasion.
It's a long story, Ash. A really long story. He's a friend. We gotta go. Now. They could be back any minute.
The non-answer was deeply unsatisfying, but the urgency in his voice was undeniable. Ashley gave the stranger one last, wary look, and then her focus snapped back into mission mode. She was the leader of this escape, and she would get her questions answered later. Right now, survival was the only thing that mattered.
Okay, this way. My car is hidden about a quarter-mile down the road. Stay close, stay quiet, and try to keep up.
The escape from the warehouse compound was a tense, adrenaline-fueled ordeal. Ashley led the way, a silent, efficient shadow in the darkness. Caleb was right behind her, his own protective instincts on high alert. And Ty was a ghost, a silent third wheel in his own rescue. He was in a state of profound, surreal dislocation. He had just been saved by a woman he now, with his returning memories, recognized as Ashley Stanton, his own ex-sister-in-law, his friend. A woman who was now looking at him like he was a dangerous, unpredictable animal she had been forced to let out of its cage. And he was with his best friend, his brother, Caleb, who was so focused on the escape and on Ashley that he hadn't even had a chance to properly acknowledge the miracle of their reunion. Ty was surrounded by his past, but he was a complete stranger to it. He felt a profound and deeply painful sense of isolation. They made it back to her rental car, a small, anonymous sedan, and piled in, their hearts pounding. Ashley started the engine, and with a final nervous look in the rearview mirror, she pulled away from the dark, menacing shape of the warehouse and sped down the long, empty, and unmarked dirt road. The first part of the story is a high-stakes, cross-country road trip. The three of them, a strange, mismatched, and deeply traumatized team, are on the run. The atmosphere in the car is thick with unspoken questions and a deep underlying tension. Ashley is in the driver's seat, a silent, focused leader. Caleb is in the passenger seat, a quiet, simmering ball of rage. And Ty is in the back, A ghost, a stranger, his mind a chaotic whirl of returning memories and the immediate terrifying reality of their situation. Ashley drove for hours, pushing the small rental car to its limits, putting as much distance as she could between them and their unseen enemies. The vast, majestic, and intimidating landscape of the Alaskan wilderness unfolded around them, a beautiful, indifferent witness to their desperate flight.
Okay,
She said finally, breaking the long, heavy silence as the first pale light of dawn began to appear on the horizon. Ashley, I think we're safe for a minute. Now, are you going to tell me what the hell is going on, and who is your friend? She looked at Caleb, her eyes demanding an answer. But it was Ty who spoke from the back seat, his voice a low, rough, and unfamiliar rasp.
My name is Benjamin, and your ex-husband just saved my life. That's all you need to know for now.
The quiet, authoritative finality in his tone, the voice of a man who was used to being in control, surprised them both into silence. Ashley just glanced at him in the rearview mirror, her own expression a mixture of suspicion, intrigue, and a strange, unsettling flicker of something that almost looked like recognition, before turning her focus back to the long, empty road ahead. While the desperate high-stakes escape was just beginning in the vast, cold wilderness of Alaska, a very different and much quieter drama was reaching its romantic climax back at Heartland. The story cuts from the tense, dark interior of Ashley's rental car to the beautiful starlit lookout point in the Alberta foothills where Nathan had taken Amy. He had just delivered his heartfelt, perfectly crafted proposal, his voice a low, steady, and sincere murmur under the vast, star-dusted sky. He was on one knee, holding out the small velvet box that contained a glittering diamond promise of a new and peaceful future. Amy, who had been swept up in the romantic perfection of the evening, was completely and utterly overwhelmed. The 4 long, lonely years of her grief, the recent chaotic turmoil of her own confused heart, it all seemed to dissolve in the face of this simple, powerful, and undeniable truth. Here was a good man, offering her a good, stable, and loving life. She was weeping, silent, happy tears streaming down her face, her hands covering her mouth in a gesture of pure, overwhelmed joy. She looked from his hopeful, loving face to the beautiful ring, and then back again. In that moment, the ghosts of the past were finally, blessedly silent.
Yes.
She whispered, her voice a choked sob of pure, absolute happiness.
Yes, Nathan. Yes.
A brilliant, triumphant smile broke across Nathan's face. He let out a shaky, relieved laugh, his own eyes now shining with tears. With a steady hand, he took the beautiful, perfect ring and slid it onto her finger. It was a perfect fit. He stood up, and she met him in a deep, powerful, and passionate kiss. A kiss of promise, of a new beginning, of a future that was, finally, blessedly clear. The drive back to Heartland was a quiet, intimate, and dreamlike journey. Amy sat in the passenger seat of Nathan's truck, the beautiful, heavy ring of foreign, glittering presence on her finger. She couldn't stop looking at it. It was a tangible, physical symbol of the choice she had just made. A choice to finally, truly, and completely move on. She looked over at the man beside her, at his handsome, happy face, and she felt a profound sense of peace. This was right. This was her new life.
You're quiet. Having second thoughts already?
His tone was a gentle, loving tease, but she could hear the small, hopeful question that lay just beneath it.
No, not at all,
She said, her voice a soft, certain murmur. She reached across the console and placed her hand on his, her new ring glinting in the dim green glow of the dashboard lights.
I'm just happy. It's been a long time since I felt this kind of happy.
His own hand turned to grip hers, his thumb gently stroking her knuckles.
Me too. You've made me a very, very happy man. Amy Fleming.
It was in this perfect, quiet, and intimate moment that his phone buzzed, a harsh, unwelcome intrusion from the outside world. He glanced down at the screen, and Amy saw his easy, romantic smile instantly vanish, replaced by a sharp, focused, and all-business intensity. He pulled the truck over to the side of the road, the sudden, jarring halt a strange, discordant note in their otherwise perfect evening.
Sorry, I have to take this. It's important.
He answered the call, his voice no longer the warm, loving tone of a fiancé, but the cold, commanding voice of the man from the Calgary boardroom.
Yeah, what is it?
He listened for a long moment, his gaze fixed on the dark, empty road ahead, his face a mask of unreadable concentration. Amy sat in the passenger seat, a small, uncomfortable flicker of unease beginning to intrude on her happy bubble. This was a side of him she rarely saw, the side that was a powerful and slightly intimidating businessman. A slow, cold, and deeply satisfied smile began to spread across his face. It was not the warm, loving smile he gave to her. It was a different smile entirely. It was the smile of a predator who has just had its prey walk directly into its trap.
Good, that's excellent news. Where are they now?
He listened again, a small, almost imperceptible nod.
No, don't bring them to me yet. Take them to the secondary location, the old warehouse. Keep them there, quietly. I'll deal with them in the morning. Just make sure they are secure, and make sure no one saw you.
He ended the call and tossed the phone onto the center console, the dark, intense energy of the conversation still clinging to him. He was a different man than the one who had proposed to her just a half an hour ago. Amy looked at him, her own face a mask of confused, slightly apprehensive curiosity.
Is everything okay? What was that about?
He turned to her, and the cold, hard businessman was gone, replaced once again by the warm, loving, and completely charming fiancé. He smiled, and the smile was so perfect, so reassuring, that she instantly dismissed the strange, cold feeling she had just had.
It's all okay.
He said, his voice a smooth, calming purr. He reached out and gently tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear.
Just a little bit of business. A problem I've been trying to solve for a long time. But we got it. It's all under control now.
He leaned in and gave her a soft, lingering kiss, a kiss that was a perfect, beautiful lie. And Amy, so full of her own new, brilliant, and beautiful hope, believed him. She believed him completely. She had no idea that the business problem he had just solved was the father of her child, the man whose ghost she had finally, she believed, laid to rest. She had no idea that the man whose ring she was now wearing, the man she had just promised her future to, was, at that very moment, holding her past captive in a dark, cold, and secret prison. The small, anonymous rental car sped south through the vast, empty, and breathtakingly beautiful landscape of the Alaskan wilderness. Inside the car, a tense and deeply complicated silence reigned. Ashley drove, her knuckles white on the steering wheel, her eyes constantly flicking between the empty road ahead and the rearview mirror. Beside her, Caleb was a quiet, simmering ball of rage, his gaze fixed on the passing scenery, his mind a chaotic whirl of disbelief and a growing, furious resolve. And in the back seat, Ty was a ghost. He was a silent, watchful presence, the great unknown and deeply unsettling variable in their desperate equation. Ashley, a woman who was used to being in control, was completely out of her depth. She had come to Alaska on a rescue mission for one man, and she was leaving with two. The second man, the one Caleb had simply called his friend, was a complete enigma. He was clearly in some kind of deep trouble. He was ruggedly handsome in a wild, almost feral way, and he looked at Caleb with a fierce protective loyalty that was undeniable. But he was also a stranger, a man with haunted eyes and a story that she knew, with a certainty that settled in her gut, was far more complicated than a simple bar fight. She had tried to get answers. As soon as they had put a safe distance between themselves and the abandoned warehouse, she had started her interrogation.
Okay, Caleb, we're safe. For now. Are you going to tell me what the hell is going on? Who were those men? And who is he?
She had gestured with her head to the silent, bearded man in her back seat. Caleb had just shaken his head, his face a mask of grim, exhausted frustration.
I can't, Ash. Not yet. It's not my story to tell. You have to trust me. This is bigger than you can possibly imagine. We just need to get back to Heartland as fast as possible.
The non-answer was maddening, but she saw the profound, desperate plea in his eyes, and for now, she let it go. She trusted him. Her heart, foolish as it may be, had always and would always trust him. So she drove. For hours, they moved in a tense, silent tableau, three traumatized souls on a desperate, high-stakes road trip. Ty, in the back, was a quiet, almost unnerving presence. He was no longer the broken, amnesiac man known as Benjamin. He was Ty Borden, and his mind, now blessedly, terrifyingly whole, was a razor-sharp analytical machine. He was observing, he was planning, and he was, for the first time in 4 long years, in control of his own destiny. He listened to the quiet, intermittent conversation between Caleb and Ashley, to their whispered, half-finished sentences, and he pieced together the story of their own recent chaotic reunion. He understood, with a painful, aching clarity, that the woman who had just saved his life, the woman who was a ghost from his own past, was in the middle of her own heartbreaking, complicated love story with his best friend. The irony was not lost on him. His most immediate and most pressing concern was the phone. Caleb had told him about the SOS message, about the GPS. And Ty, a man who had just been the subject of a professional high-tech manhunt, knew exactly what that meant.
The phone.
His voice, a low, rough, and authoritative rasp from the back seat, made Ashley jump.
Caleb, your phone. Give it to her.
What? Why?
Because if you sent a signal from it, they can track it. They're not stupid. They'll be looking for it. For us. We need to get rid of it, now.
The cold, hard, and undeniable logic of his words hit them with the force of a physical blow. Of course, they were not just running, they were being hunted, and they were carrying a homing beacon. Ashley pulled the car over to the side of the deserted gravel road. Caleb handed her his phone. She looked at it for a long, poignant moment. It was the one thing that had saved him, and now it was a liability. With a final, regretful look, she turned it off, opened her door, and threw it as far as she could into the dense, dark, and concealing wilderness of the Alaskan forest. The small, almost inaudible splash it made as it landed in a hidden stream was the sound of them cutting their last and most dangerous tie to the outside world. They were on their own now. 3 ghosts in a strange car, in the middle of a vast and unforgiving nowhere. While the desperate off-the-grid escape was unfolding on the remote highways of the north, a very different and much more dangerous kind of storm was brewing back at Heartland. The day after his perfect, triumphant proposal to Amy, Nathan Price was a man on top of the world. He had everything he had ever wanted, or at least everything he had told himself he wanted. He had the woman, he had the implicit promise of the land, and his greatest threat, the one man who could undo his entire meticulously crafted 4-year-long plan, was safely locked away in a dark, forgotten corner of the world. He spent the morning at Heartland, playing the part of the perfect, attentive fiancé to perfection. He brought Amy breakfast in bed, a thoughtful, romantic gesture that made her heart melt. He sat with Jack on the porch, discussing ranch business with the easy, familiar confidence of a man who was already the co-owner of the property. He was charming, he was loving, he was completely and utterly in control. But a small nagging detail was beginning to bother him. He had not yet received the final confirmation from his team in Alaska, the simple 2-word message, "asset secure," that would have officially closed the book on the Borden chapter of his life. It was a minor, insignificant detail, a small, loose thread in an otherwise perfect tapestry. But Nathan was not a man who liked loose threads. He made his excuses and drove back to his own ranch in the early afternoon, a profound, almost arrogant sense of satisfaction settling over him. He walked into his pristine, modern home office, a space of clean lines, polished chrome, and state-of-the-art technology. He sat down in his expensive leather chair, and with a casual, almost bored air, he opened his laptop and pulled up the live, encrypted security footage from the holding facility in Alaska. He expected to see a simple, static image, the quiet, empty corridor outside the cell, a testament to a situation that was completely and permanently under control. Instead, what he saw made the blood in his veins turn to ice. The footage, time-stamped from the early hours of that very morning, showed the heavy steel door of the cell hanging open, its lock shattered, its frame bent and broken. The cell was empty. He frantically rewound the footage, his heart beginning to hammer a panicked, frantic rhythm against his ribs. He watched, his face a mask of dawning, horrified disbelief, as the entire impossible rescue mission played out on his screen. He saw her, Ashley Stanton, a woman who should have been in Vancouver, a woman who had no business being a part of this at all, appeared in the frame, a ghostly, determined figure in the grainy, black-and-white night vision footage. He watched as she, with a strength he could not have imagined, used a crowbar to single-handedly destroy the lock he had paid a fortune to have installed. He saw the door swing open, and he saw them. Caleb Odell, a man he had dismissed as a lovesick, harmless fool, and him, the ghost, Ty Borden. He watched as the 3 of them escaped, disappearing into the darkness, a small, defiant, and completely unexpected team of heroes. The calm, controlled, and triumphant fiancé vanished, incinerated in a sudden, violent firestorm of pure, unrestrained rage. He let out a raw, guttural roar of fury, and with a single violent motion, he swept his arm across his expensive, minimalist desk, sending his laptop, his papers, his entire ordered world crashing to the floor in a shower of shattered plastic and broken glass. He stood there, his chest heaving, a cornered, wounded animal. He had been so close. He had had it all. The woman, the land, the future. And now, in a single, inexplicable, and utterly disastrous moment, it was all on the verge of collapsing. The ghost he had tried so hard to bury was not just back, he was free, and he was coming for him. The initial hot rage of his breakdown slowly began to cool, replaced by something much colder, much harder, and infinitely more dangerous. A chilling reptilian focus. The game had changed. The time for subtle, patient manipulation was over. This was no longer a quiet, clandestine war of secrets and lies. This was a war of survival. He pulled his phone from his pocket, his movements now sharp and precise. His face was a mask of cold, deadly resolve. He was no longer just a suitor, a businessman. He was a hunter, and he was about to unleash his entire arsenal. He made a series of quick, brutal, and efficient phone calls, his voice a low, menacing command.
He's out! All of them, and she helped them. The Stanton girl. I want them found. I don't care what it costs. I want every resource you have on this. I want every road, every airstrip, every bus station from Alaska to Alberta on high alert. I want their faces sent to every contact we have. And when you find them, the contingency plan is now in effect. No more half measures. Do you understand me? I want this handled, permanently.
He ended the call, a look of pure, murderous intent in his eyes. He had made a mistake. He had underestimated them. He had underestimated the power of their loyalty, the depth of their love. It was a mistake he would not make again. He had tried to be the hero of this story. Now he would be the villain, and he would burn the whole world down before he would let them win. The final act of the story unfolds on two parallel colliding tracks, a juxtaposition of quiet, creeping suspicion and a high-stakes, desperate race against time. Back at the Heartland Ranch, the day after Nathan's triumphant wedding planning session, a deep and profound sense of unease had settled over Jack Bartlett. He was a man who trusted his gut, and his gut was telling him that something was fundamentally, dangerously wrong. Nathan's sudden, overwhelming presence, his strange, almost manic energy, the subtle, possessive way he acted around Amy, it was all a series of small, discordant notes that were beginning to form a loud, alarming chorus in Jack's mind. He was in his workshop, the familiar, comforting scent of old wood and oil doing little to soothe his troubled spirit. He was trying to mend a piece of tack, but his hands were restless, his mind 1,000 miles away. He thought of Caleb. It wasn't like him to just disappear, not without a word. He and Ashley were a complicated, chaotic storm, but he was a good, loyal friend. For him to be missing from the guest list of Amy's wedding was not just an oversight, it was a glaring red flag. On a hunch, a simple, nagging need to know, he pulled out his own phone and made a quiet, discreet call. A few minutes later, he was talking to a friend, a doctor at the small rural hospital that served Nathan's father's long-term care facility. He kept the conversation casual, just an old man asking after a neighbor.
Yeah, just wanted to see how old man Price was doing. Nathan's been so worried about him lately. Says he's not got much time left. It's a terrible thing.
The answer he received on the other end of the line was the final, definitive proof his gut had been searching for. The doctor was confused. Not doing well? Jack, where did you hear that? I just saw him this morning. He's the same as he's been for the last 2 years. Stable. He's not going anywhere anytime soon. Jack hung up the phone, a look of cold, hard, and absolute certainty on his face. Nathan was lying, and it was not a small white lie, it was a big one. A calculated, manipulative lie that was at the very heart of his entire rushed courtship of his granddaughter. The question was no longer if something was wrong, the question was what and why. At the same time, hundreds of miles to the north, Team Ty was in the final grueling stretch of their own desperate journey. They had abandoned Ashley's rental car in a small, forgotten town in the Yukon, rightly assuming it would be the first thing Nathan's men would be looking for. They had used the last of their cash to buy passage on a series of long-haul transport trucks, a slow, anonymous, and untraceable journey south through the vast, beautiful, and unforgiving wilderness of northern British Columbia. They were now in the back of one of these trucks, a noisy, rumbling, and blessedly anonymous steel box, hidden amongst a cargo of fresh produce. They were exhausted, they were hungry, and they were running on the last fumes of their adrenaline. But they were close. According to the driver, they were just an hour outside of Hudson. Caleb was desperately, repeatedly trying to call the Heartland Ranch, his new untraceable burner phone a fragile electronic lifeline. But every call was the same, a strange dead-air silence followed by a failed connection.
It's no good. It's not even ringing. It's like the whole damn valley is a dead zone.
Keep trying.
Ty's voice was a low, urgent command. He knew what this was. It was not a technical glitch. It was a strategy. Nathan was not just hunting them, he was isolating his target. He had cut Heartland off from the rest of the world. The truck finally began to slow down, its air brakes hissing as it took a long, sweeping exit off the main highway. The driver, a kind, unwitting accomplice in their desperate mission, called back to them. "All right, folks, this is the turnoff for Hudson, as close as I can get you. Good luck with whatever you're running from." He brought the truck to a halt at the top of the exit ramp. Caleb, Ashley, and Ty scrambled out, their bodies aching, their minds a mixture of profound relief and a new heightened sense of urgency. They were here. They were on home turf. But as they stood on the side of the road, the familiar, beloved sight of the rolling Alberta foothills stretching out before them, a new and infinitely more terrifying obstacle presented itself. Down the road, blocking the only route into the valley that led to Hudson and to Heartland, was a makeshift and deeply unofficial checkpoint. 2 dark, unmarked SUVs were parked across the road, and a group of 4 large, intimidating men, the same kind of men who had ambushed them in the dark streets of the town just a few days ago, were standing there, their arms crossed, their expressions a mask of cold, hard authority. They were Nathan's men. The episode ends on this massive, terrifying cliffhanger. Jack, back at Heartland, now armed with the knowledge of Nathan's lie, is a lone, suspicious man in a house that is beginning to feel like a cage. And Ty, Caleb, and Ashley, the only people who know the full monstrous truth, are standing on a lonely road just miles from home, their path blocked by an enemy who has, it seems, thought of everything. The trap was not just for them, it was for the entire Heartland family.